Hello, everyone. Welcome to It's Sybil. I am Sybil Wilkes, and the guys are all here. You can put him down, man. You can really. 'Cause I.
It's a bit now.
You're holding up the. Well, it's past its time. We are talking
It's a
about
bit.
something very important today, and I'm glad you guys are all here. We have a special guest, my friend Brian Custer. We talked about it last week, and I've wanted to talk to Brian about this for a long while, and now we have an opportunity to do that, and especially with three important people here and various ages and stages of life, with our young and Khameron, as well as Med and Damon Williams, talking about prostate cancer. And we started it last week talking about the Secretary of Defense, and I wanted to continue that and talk about it from a more personal standpoint. So, Brian, who is my A Sports guy, or B Cuss as I call him, is coming on in a little bit to talk to us about that. How is the weather where you all are? How are you faring?
Oh, it was so cold that not even MLK was out marching. Okay, that's how cold it was.
Med, how about
And
you?
this, look, my wife can't stay cold, so she had the window open in the house, and so this is how I've been. I was in bed under a blanket with this on. She's like, "Are you cold, dear? Go away from me. Just go
Oh
away from me, my
wow,
dear. Just leave me
wow,
alone. I'm freezing."
wow! You,
got, a,
you you
got a
all
window
sound
open to
like
32 degrees down here in Atlanta. What?
was that at night or was that a high during the day?
That was a high during the day. They had schools across Atlanta closed today because it was raining, and they
Hmm.
thought that the streets were gonna be ice. And down in Atlanta we don't have
You,
salt,
you, you don't
so
want
all we need is ice, and it's a wrap.
to. Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, my son's school didn't close. They said, "No, we're gonna tough it out." And yeah, 32
Good for them.
was close to the high today, so it was interesting.
Wow, wow. Damon, how about you and the dogs?
Hey, the dogs had to tiptoe out. It's so bad. They closed. They canceled church yesterday. That's how
Oh, for
cold it was. There
Jesus.
were church services. The Lord just said, "Stay home." Yesterday, it
Okay.
was so cold.
Wow, and that's Chicago.
Yeah, but it
Wow.
was brutal. I mean, we have wind chills and double digit wind chills, 20 and 30 below. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's actually unsafely cold outside.
yeah, yeah. It has been cold here. Right now, it's about 25 degrees, and it's going to go down a little bit lower, perhaps in the teens tonight, and then get a little bit warmer tomorrow. It might hit the 40s tomorrow. But schools have been
Mm.
closed. Obviously, Monday was a holiday, but some schools today and perhaps tomorrow will be closed. And we also had a story yesterday that I think it's Tennessee, like Memphis, in areas like that, where, like Atlanta, a southern city, they don't do well in this kind of weather and people out on the roads and what have you. So they're trying to keep people safe.
Yeah,
And
we are looking forward to 15 degrees tomorrow. How about that?
Yes, 30 degrees would be so nice.
Ooh.
Khameron, have you been on public transportation this week, or you been working out of the house?
Yeah, thankfully my employer, the university, has encouraged people to stay home if they indeed can. So I did go out of the house to play some whirly ball with my family the other day, and I had mistakenly left the window in the car just like a little bit ajar, just like a micro inch, and frost just like covered everything inside of the car just for the few
Why?
hours that we were out.
Why would it even be a jar? Were you
We
trying to
were trying
clear
to
out
see
some
if the
smoke or
door was
something?
like, yeah, we were trying to see if the door was like frozen shut, and I guess it was just like that much cracked open for the frost to seep in.
Have y'all seen the TikTok games where they freeze the food, the ramen noodles, or little white girls, their hair is frozen, like Pippi Longstocking and stuff like that? Have you seen those on TikTok?
No, I
Mm,
haven't. That sounds hilarious.
Okay.
no,
Yeah, so
no.
they
I've
have
heard.
they have the ramen noodles. They get it with the hot water. They stir it up, and then over a period of minutes, they kind of soup it, and then all of a sudden the fork sticks. You bring the ramen noodles up. They're stiff and frozen. The fork is frozen in the ramen noodles, and they're calling it works of art.
Yeah. I mean, I think here you could throw water in the air and
Yeah,
ice
and
cubes will happen
right.
before it hits the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of like that. Exactly right.
Yeah.
So, oh, those wacky kids and oh, the TikTok games they play. Well, I'm glad you guys are here. Let's talk about the What You Need to Know newsletter. This is our Monday through Friday effort in which we seek to inform and empower Black folks. And this week, obviously, Monday was the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He would have been 95 yesterday. And it was my intent to not only pay tribute to him for the week, for not only for the day rather, but for the week, and hopefully to get our contributors to contribute things and stories to write having to do or the subjects related to Dr. King and some of the things we knew him for, or to expand our knowledge of Dr. King more to the point. Because as I noted, we don't really talk about him so much anymore. And uh, one of our members said that in one of her kids, she has four. One of them, they weren't even closing school yesterday for Dr. King, and I thought, well, then we've got to do our best to kind of inform and empower young people and people of all ages to remind them of these things. And Khameron has taken on the challenge and is writing on a number of subjects. And today, Khameron, what are you talking about as it relates to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yeah, so we're trying to bring Martin Luther King's beliefs to our contemporary political climate, which we all know is absolutely bananas right about now. There's so many different things going on, from gun rights to abortion to the war in the Middle East. And in the latter years of his life before he was assassinated, Dr. King has something to say about each of these contemporary issues. And these are very buried speeches, very little known speeches that took me a very long time to locate. But they provide us a lot of insight on where Dr. King was at mentally before his assassination, and how his global political knowledge was just beginning to take shape. Dr. King was alive at the time where Israel, the state of Israel, was only 10 years old. And that is a very different Israel than the one that we know today. Also, Dr. King and Coretta had just taken a world tour in all of the world's third world countries, and had just become acquainted with what global poverty looks like for brown people across the entire world. In 1968, in March, Dr. King had just visited where Jesus Christ was crucified, and so he was very convicted in his spirit about the state of Israel, about what it is, about the symbol that it could be. And so the quote that you would hear with regards to Dr. King and Israel is this one right here. Dr. King said, "Peace for Israel means security, and we must stand with all of our might to protect its right to exist and its territorial integrity." But on a bit of a deeper analysis, we can understand that Israel was only 10. There was no Benjamin Netanyahu. There was no Hezbollah. There was no Hamas.
Nettie?
And yeah, and all the violence I was seeing in the Middle East now was MLK couldn't have possibly foreseen that. Likewise, we need to remember, as Bernice King tweeted, that Martin Luther King was a pacifist through and through to the very end. I would imagine that he would decry this war at all levels, and Martin Luther King would speak truth to power at the world powers facilitating this war, the world powers profiting off of this war. An interesting thing that I discovered was that Martin Luther King believed that the solution to world peace was solving global poverty. He believed that if everyone had their needs met, that the world would be a much better place today.
And that really does stick to what's going on in Gaza right now, because the people there were living in poverty before it became worse, before it became just a shambles and just a mere shadow of its former self. And now going forward, What will that area look like? How will those people live in light of the slow transportation of medicines and day-to-day living necessities?
Right, exactly. And I would imagine that Martin Luther King would find some way to be out there in Gaza. He would find some way to speak at the United Nations and call for a ceasefire. And he would be absolutely appalled at how much unnecessary bloodshed this war has caused. And we can't forget that at the latter years of his life, he was crusading against the Vietnam War.
More, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, so that's
definitely,
on MLK in the Middle East.
this war definitely would have him scratching his head and saying, things that are contrary to what administrations want to hear him say, as the Johnson administration wasn't crazy about what he was saying in the 1960s, most definitely.
Yeah.
One of the other articles that in the newsletter talking about this, I talked about the difference in the Democratic and the Republican approaches to Martin Luther King Day. Um, President Biden went to Philadelphia for his third year in a row, where he participated in a food bank. And this has been a normal thing where he performs acts of service every Martin Luther King Day. And there's some politics involved here. Let us be clear. He went to Philadelphia, the state of Pennsylvania, which is a swing state. And so there's reason for that. But also, and it's close to his Wilmington, Delaware home. And the vice president, Kamala Harris, continuing her trip through the South, and particularly the important state of South Carolina, which the good people of South Carolina not only jettisoned the former vice president into leader status after the last South Carolina Democratic primary, but they really kickstarted and gave life to his campaign. And he, was propelled to such a height he never looked back as he went into the fall election. So she was in South Carolina at the state capitol in Columbia, and she was there talking about the fight for justice and against attacks on fundamental freedoms. And during her conversation, she talks about a woman's right to her body, as well as voting rights, which is obviously very important for Black folks in these southern states. And she's done the same in Georgia and all. While the Republicans chose not to do anything related to Black and brown people in the state of Iowa. Now, granted, it's a small group, so you wouldn't have to really spread yourself out throughout the state of Iowa. But they were invited to an organization called the Black and actually, it's a meeting called the Black and Brown Presidential Forum. It's been in existence for 40 years, and leading Democrats have gone and have participated in this forum, including President Biden, former President Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Reverend Jesse Jackson, when they were all on the campaign trail. No one even answered the invitation among the Republicans of Donald Trump, of Nikki Haley, of DeSantis, of Ramaswamy, and how this will play in other states, I'm not sure. But Donald Trump is very clear about wanting all of the African Americans to vote for him. And yet, you don't go to where the Black folks are. And sometimes it's kind of difficult to find Black folks in the various counties, amongst the 99 counties in Iowa. But that was our conversation about that. And of course, the Iowa caucus, we talked about that yesterday. That was held last night, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Did any of you participate either virtually, or I know you all were inside, but able to participate in any form or another of King Day celebrations?
I was, and it was actually outdoors. It was in the southern south suburbs of Chicago, and a lot of elected officials, including our Cook County Board President, Tony Preckwinkle, some of the Southland mayors and trustees of the area had a brunch in honor of Dr. King with Victory Apostolic Church. And so we were all there, and I actually performed, and that was a fantastic gathering that they had. So we did, and they definitely acknowledged, and they said it was his 99th birthday. So I don't know how
Well,
old he would have been.
1929 was when he was born. And if you do
Okay,
the math, this would have been his
yeah.
95th. But and
Now,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
if anybody knew a birthday, I knew. That's why I'm saying they were mistaken. Definitely not going to dispute birthdays with Sybil Wilkes. That's for sure. But it was a great gathering. It was some great speeches, some great call to action for this upcoming election because it is very vital. And he mentioned that Dr. King had a speech entitled "Give Us the Ballot," and it's one of his lesser known speeches. And then the piggyback to that for us was, now that we have the ballot, use the ballot. And that was, so a lot of elected officials. It was a great gathering.
That's awesome. So those are the kinds of things we talk about in the What You Need to Know newsletter. We'd love to have you subscribe if you don't already. It's absolutely free. Please go to SybilWilkes.com, give us your name and your email address, and we'll have it in your email box every Monday through Friday morning. And let us now move to the What's Really Going On segment. And this was a result of conversation we had on the show last week with the same participants here, talking about the Secretary of Defense. And so without further ado, I want to introduce my friend Brian Custer, is an Emmy Award-winning sportscaster and anchor for ESPN's signature news and information show, Sports Center, as well as the host of Showtime Championship Boxing. This HBCU man is, that would be Hampton University. Is that the real HU, Brian?
That's what we say.
Okay. Brian is a married man, proud married man, and father of 3 young men and a prostate cancer survivor. That's why I wanted my friend Brian here. Brian, you came to mind when we were discussing the Secretary of Defense last week and his trails with his health after he had prostate cancer surgery just before Christmas, and then had a reaction and an infection that took almost 2 weeks of hospitalization for him to be cleared of and then return home. So we also talked about the secrecy surrounding the recent hospitalization, and that conversation was that men, and Black men in particular, don't want to talk about the prostate issues and especially cancer of the prostate. So Brian, I would like, so we want you to talk a little bit about your journey, which is interesting because of when it happened to you, when you discovered that you were a man who had to deal with prostate cancer.
Yeah, for me, Sybil, it was 10 years ago. And at that time, man, I was, as I feel like I am now, in probably the best shape of my life. I was 42, had just turned 42. I was a guy, and still am, always went and got a health check from my regular doctor. And, he just had told me at the time that he felt a little bump on my prostate when we did that, did a check. And obviously we did the PSA as well. And he said, look, if the number comes back a 4 or higher, then we need to talk about it. And long story short, when my results came back, it was a 5.4.
Wow.
Obviously, and to be 42, that is extremely high. I had to have a biopsy done, and they take 12 specimens, and out of the 12 specimens, 7 of mine came back cancerous aggressively. And so I had to have surgery immediately. In fact, I had surgery probably after I got the results of the biopsy 3 weeks later. That's how quickly I had to have surgery. And, I had really never had major surgery in my life. And so I asked the doc, I was like, can we do something? Can we try something else?
Right.
Take a pill? Can I, do? And he said, yeah, we can try, whatever. He said, but I'm just going to tell you right now, looking at your results, if they don't work, you'll be dead within a year. And, so yeah, I had to have surgery. Knock on wood for me, surgery was successful. Now, in my case, I think it was maybe 2.5 years later, my numbers started to creep back up a little bit again, and then I had to go through 39 bouts of high grade radiation. But look, I'm here and I'm talking to you right now, and that's the positive thing.
Right, Brian. When you talk about this, and you have made it your mission to talk about prostate issues and health. What's the first thing that men ask you about in their curiosity about this, or the first thing you want to share with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, guys want to know, man, am I going to have erectile issues? And,
Right.
other guys are going to be, who are younger are more like, I hear if I have surgery, I'm going to be sterile. That means I won't be able to, have kids anymore. I won't feel like a man. I have, you have those type of questions from guys a lot of times. And I tell them all the time, I think first and foremost, you have to find a great surgeon and a great doctor who has done this surgery and is one of the best at doing it. Because yes, if you don't get a good surgeon and you get a doctor and he clips a nerve in there, yeah, you can have some issues when it comes to this surgery. I can knock on wood for me that I had one of the best here in the New York City area, and it worked for me. But yeah, for a number of people, if you don't have a good surgeon and someone who is not very careful, I mean, you touching a lot of stuff down there.
Right.
Yeah. So then you may have the erectile dysfunction. You may have the incontinence that comes with it.
And
what's your surgeon's name? Let's get that out there.
For me, it was Dr. David Samadi who did mine here in New York City. He's, one of the best, but there are great doctors all across the country, but you got to do your homework. I mean, it's, look, this is your life that and I think when you talked about the minister, the Secretary of Defense, obviously there were some issues after he had surgery. Because he had it right before Christmas, and then all of a sudden there was a buildup of fluid in his stomach. From, if the reports are true, he had a urinary tract infection. So he had some complications from that surgery that impaired him. That was the reason why I think it was on January 1st, where he had really bad pain and had to go to the hospital and was there for almost 2 weeks.
Right, exactly. And those
We need to find out who his surgeon was.
Yeah.
Stay away from him.
And Brian, what about your history, your family history? Was that ever a consideration
I think for all men, listen, I think for all men, your father is always the benchmark with this. If your father's had prostate cancer, then there's a great chance, if I'm not mistaken, a 70% chance you're going to get it too. Or let's say if your grandfather has it, sometimes it skips a generation. Unfortunately for me, my natural born father died before I was born, so I didn't really have that benchmark, so to speak. But cancer runs on my father's side in the family. My uncles had bone cancer, lung cancer, and so as my doctor talked to me, he said, unfortunately for you, you're the first one who pulled the prostate cancer card, but the common denominator was cancer. So I think that's the important thing. If for any man if your uncle, if your brother, especially your father has it, grandfather has it, yeah, you should be making sure you're getting checked every year, because there's a good chance that either you or maybe, your child or somebody like that, a male, that's going to have it as well.
So Brian, one of the things, and we talk about this, is and our friend Charlie Wilson, the great entertainer, had his own encounter with prostate cancer. And he said that one of the problems was that the men in his family who had prostate cancer did not talk about it.
Right. Yeah, I think, listen, I mean, who wants to talk about, hey, look, I may be having some urinary issues. I can't urinate. I feel like I have to urinate and it doesn't come out right. Or I may be having some erectile issues, and that's not thing I think as black men we want to really talk about, because we always feel like, hey man, we gifted. So that's not some of the things they want to talk about. Now look, I can honestly tell you, for me, that one of the reasons why they call prostate cancer the silent killer is because there are really no symptoms. For me, I didn't have any. I didn't have any urinary issues. I had no erectile issue. I had none of that. I didn't have one thing that was the matter with me. The only way I knew I had an issue was because I went and had my annual checkup. Had I not done that, I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Right.
And
Wow.
I asked the doc, I said, man, when would I have had any sign that something was wrong with me? And he said, what would have happened, Brian, is that you would have woke up one day with the worst back pain that you've ever experienced in your life, so severe that you probably would have had to call 911 just to try to get out of bed. It would have been that bad. And that's because for prostate cancer, is when it starts to spread out of your prostate, it goes right to your spine. And it goes right, and it's a wrap. And my doctor even told me that once I got diagnosed and I had to go get MRIs and all that type of stuff before surgery, the first thing he said to me was, Brian, you're going to have this MRI and I'm going to send you to get a bone scan. And he said, if that bone scan comes back positive, the only thing I can do for you is make you comfortable. I'm just going to be 100% honest with you. And so it is so crucial that men get checked and you catch prostate cancer early, because it's 100% treatable for the most part, 95% treatable. You catch that thing early. If you don't and it spreads, it can be problems.
Brian, one of the things that men often talk about is they rather not have the digital examination. And so do you recommend, I mean, in your case, that's how it was discovered. But if for those who might be a little hesitant but want to do the right thing, does a blood test, the PSA test, does that help in instigating the investigation?
It's probably the best test right now that we have to recognize and indicate if you have a problem when it comes to prostate cancer, is the PSA and that blood test. But I'm telling you, that digital rectal exam is necessary only for the simple fact that sometimes you can get a false positive too with a PSA. Sometimes, depending on how it's administered, things of that nature. So sometimes you may get it. It may elevate and then it come down. But the thing that saved me was that digital rectal exam. And you're right, Sybil. I remember at the network we had in health fair, and I was trying to get some of my fellow colleagues, hey, look, man, it's free physicals. Come on, y'all, come just get a physical. I'm gonna come too. Let's do it. We'll do it together. And I said, oh, they're giving PSAs out. So you know what? Let's do that as well. And one of my colleagues, true story, looked at me and was like, hey man, I ain't letting no doc stick his finger up my butt. That is gay, bro. What's wrong with you? And that was just the way black men feel, man. Hey, look, I'll let him take my blood. I ain't doing that. But I can only go back to when I first had my exam. Look, the first doc took my blood and then he said, look, I got to do a digital rectal exam. And I was like, for what? And he was like, because I want to feel up there. If I feel a bump or anything like that, that tells me that there is something going on. And I did. I had that bump up there on my prostate. And I'm lucky that he did that. And, obviously when I get checkups now, they take my blood and he still does the digital rectal exam as well.
And the other question, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ahmed.
No, I laugh because it happened to me recently. My last physical, it's like it was very weird how my doctor got around to bringing it up. It was like he was just talking to me. We were actually talking about sports, and he had me so distracted about sports. I didn't notice he was putting on gloves and, getting lubricate. I was, and then he's like, all right, sir. Like literally, like I was done talking about how bad the Detroit Pistons were. And then all of a sudden he said, all right, Mr. Gordon, can you take down your pants and bend over the table? I'm like, for what are you talking about, sir? I was like, where'd this come from? He's like, I want to check your prostate. I'm like, is this part of the physical? He was like, yes. Now, Mr. Gordon, you're bigger than me. I ain't gonna fight you. So if you don't want to do it, we don't want to do it. And I'm just sitting there looking at him. I'm just like, because my mother had colon cancer. And so, it's been kind of after I turned 40, I'm 41 right now. And I was just like, all right, doc, let's get this over with, man. Let me see your hands. I'm like, all right, let's do this, man. And so he did it. And it was one of those things. And I think I called Sybil. I was like, I feel
we were
weird.
Talking, yes.
I'm like, it's done, but I'm good. But it was I wasn't prepared to go in for that.
And no dinner or drinks or anything.
Nothing.
Simple.
But it's just one of those things. You're right. I mean, it's just a weird. I'm not gonna say it's just. it's not something you're used to doing, but I understand the importance of it. But the way the doctor, threw it at me, I was just like, "Sir, what?"
Right. What are you doing?
He's trying to say his doc turned into Sexy Red. He was like, "Yo, hands on your knees, hands on your knees."
we talking about sports, and I was like, "All right, Mr. Gordon, go ahead and bend over, pull your pants down, and let me go ahead and get that prostate of yours." I'm like, "Sir, sir."
Oh my God.
I can't remember which comic it is. I think it's Tony Roberts, but it was somebody that said, no, it's not Tony Roberts. But anyway, he was saying that, all right, if we have to do that, let me do it. Just tell me what I'm looking for. He said, I can do it myself. Just tell me what am I reaching? What am I feeling for? But all jokes aside, it's very important. Of course, we know, and it's life-saving. And, it's one thing to be concerned about your manhood. It's another thing to be here for your family and be able to live your life. So, all jokes aside, thank you, Mr. Custer, for sharing your story with us.
I'll tell you what,
absolutely.
This is a true story. I get calls and people email me all the time. I don't even know, just because, as you talked about, because I've been so public with it. And here, I'll tell you why, Sybil. The only reason why was because when I was 42. I just turned 42. And so all I knew at that time was it's in the stumps that old men get.
Right.
I can't believe I've got this. And I was like, I'm not telling nobody. I don't want people to think that, oh my God, my stuff ain't gonna work, that I'm gonna be leaking and da 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 da. And then I had so many questions and I couldn't talk. There was nobody I could talk to. There was nobody I could confide in or really ask questions. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I've been so open about it, because I want to give guys the full scope of what it is. And I tell them all the time, my cancer is going to be different from yours. So we're going to have different paths there. We may end up at the same place, but we're going to have different paths. Your recovery is going to be different from my recovery, depending on what kind of shape that you're in, depending on if you've been exercising, depending on what you've been eating. You got to change your diet, all those type of things. But a guy just called me the other day and it was two things that he was worried about. He was, number one, he was 47, and he said, I can't believe that I'm going to be sterile and I wouldn't feel like a man. And then number two, he said that obviously that if I have this surgery, listen, your prostate is for a man that's what creates our semen. Is what our prostate does for them. And he said, so that means that when I have sex anymore, I will not ejaculate anymore. And I can't get past that. I don't feel like I will be a man anymore if I do this surgery. And he's like, I'm imploring you, Brian, should I even do this? And I tried to talk to this guy. Like, first of all, I'm not going to tell you whether or not you should have surgery or not. That is not here. I'm going to give you that it worked for me, but you have to determine for yourself whether or not that's going to be that if it's going to work for you, or you're going to go another route, whether it be radiation or what have you. But more importantly, why would you base your decision on your sexual conquest? You telling me that it is more important to you to ejaculate or to live? And basically that's what our whole discussion came down to.
Right.
I want you to really listen to what you're saying to me right now, that you feel like that you won't be a man just because you're going to be sterile and you won't ejaculate anymore. Or do you want to live?
And for some people, that's life for them.
And that's real. And for him, that was a hard decision for him.
Yeah.
That was a hard decision because he felt like he had not had any kids. He did want to have kids, but he just felt like I don't think I would be a man now. What am I going to bring to a woman that I'm 47, I'm sterile, I don't ejaculate,
there's more than one way to work that, obviously, but that's not for me to tell them, obviously.
And clearly, you can hang in there a lot longer if you.
Right, exactly.
You get unlimited rollover minutes.
Yes, that is the word of the
we're coming to the close of this segment. Cameron, do you have any questions?
No, I just wanted to thank you for sharing your story. And I mean, you're right. It's prostate cancer kills enough on its own, but the stigma of it, the stigma that surrounds it, I mean, kills even kills even more. So.
Absolutely. And that's why I just implore every man, especially if you're a man of color, if you are 40, usually they say 45, for white men 50. But I say for mostly, especially if you've got history of cancer or someone in your family, uncle, father has had prostate cancer. If you're 40, man of color, you should not only get going to the doctor annually anyway, just to get a health check, a regular physical, but you should also have your PSA. Just get the PSA, get the blood, at least get the blood test done, because it can save your life, because it certainly saved mine.
Bravo, my friend. I'm so glad that you are so proactive about your good health, and you are you look you look better than I've ever seen you. And I'm very glad that you were able to come on and talk to us today. I really appreciate your being open and being so proactive in this discussion. Thank you so much.
Anytime, Sib. I appreciate you, brothers, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Hey,
Brian,
thank you, Brian. Like, I want to say this about Brian. Like, his energy is infectious when I see him on ESPN. I mean, like, I text my friend Marcus Spears. I was like, is he always like that? I was like, is this man's energy always on 10 like that? Because it's amazing. So,
that's great. That's fantastic, man. I appreciate it.
So, I really do appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you and your wife, and give my love to your sweet mama as well.
Will do, Sim.
All right, darling. Take care. Be well. And I'm glad we could have that discussion with him. He's a great guy, and I've known Brian. Oh my gosh, it's like 30 years now. and when he was doing sports here in Dallas Fort Worth, and and had a great friendship for all of these many years. He got married the Saturday after the attack on the World Trade Towers, and I was trying to get to Dallas to the wedding, and the air travel was just crazy. It was just crazy.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
Let's move to trending topics. And Damon, where are you going to be? What you doing? What are your comedy dates?
What is this weekend? Anyway, I'll be home. Actually, speaking of men, we're having a men's mental health gathering at Riddles prior to the 8:00 show Saturday. So it'll be 100 guys, just giving each other a chance to fellowship and talk about having a place to discuss things with men issues and such, and a lot of the stigma attacks by men's health. So that's right on time. I'll bring up the prostate exam situation as well now that we've had this conversation, and that'll be at Riddles Friday and Saturday. And it's Tony Schofield's, our friend Tony Schofield's birthday weekend, so that's where I'll be. But tomorrow I'll be at City Winery Chicago. Thursday I'll be at City Winery Philadelphia.
Oh, wow. Okay. Busy man. And if I'm not mistaken, Tony Schofield and you are participants in the Queen's Men, right?
Yes, from all the Queen's Men Netflix special. Thank you, Sybil.
Of course. And Ahmed, tell us about your podcast.
Mind of Med will be returning soon, actually. So I'm working on that. I've actually interviewed Eva Marcille last week. Talked to her about all the Queen's Men on BT Plus, and and I was like, ooh, and but no, she's like one of the. It's funny because you'll see her on Housewives and all this other stuff, but I've known her for a little while just because of our Radio 1 connection and working in the same building for a while. And she's one of the nicest human beings you could ever meet. And so it's like whenever I hear people talk, if they talk negatively about her because of what they've seen on TV, I'm like, you don't know her. So it's like literally one of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. So I look forward to dropping that sometime soon.
That's awesome. And Khameron, what you got working?
Oh, I have been just bunkering down, trying to level up my career. And I had just recently completed one of the major milestones. I passed the project management professional exam, one of the most difficult certifications to obtain. And the test was really hard, but yeah.
Not for you.
So, apparently not. It had 4 hours to do the test. I finished it in 2, walked out and went home.
Oh, wow.
So,
good for you.
Slight work for your boy.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm about to say easy work, baby. Easy work.
I got an MCAT that I think I might need you to take for me. I'm kidding.
Oh yeah,
Come
sure.
on.
So let's talk about what's going on in the news. And former President Donald Trump clinched victory in the Iowa caucuses Monday, and it happened so quickly. The news sites
30
were
minutes.
reporting that it was like under an hour, it's closer to 30 minutes, right? That they declared Donald Trump as the winner, and as it turned out, he got 51% of the vote. He was followed very far behind by the governor of Florida. That would be Ron DeSantis. He had 21.2%. It was over 21%, not quite 22% of the vote. And third place, much to her dismay, was the former governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley. And she was hoping with that big infusion of money that she got from the conservative PACs, as well as all of the boost in her polling, would give her a second place at least. But that was not to be. She ended up in pretty much where she was the whole time, and that was in third place. And Vivek Ramaswamy has dropped out of the race. He got
He had like 150 votes total, didn't he?
Yeah.
150.
He
Total.
had 8,093 votes, or 7.7%
Okay.
of the population's vote. So he saw that the writing was on the wall. He called, and I'm not sure if he begged for a job, but he did give his endorsement to Donald Trump. Big surprise. And so now there were three, and they will move on. Donald Trump went to court today in one of his cases in which he has been accused of defamation of the character of the woman that he has also been found guilty of sexually assaulting. And even after he was found guilty, he kept talking about her and defaming her character. And so she is now asking for $10 million. That's E. Jean Carroll. And that is what this round of court will look like. The jury that was selected, that the jury selection began today, they will determine how much he should have to pay her. He can't cry broke. Not until after the New York Attorney General gets done with him. But we'll see what happens with that. This is really interesting. I think that there was a stopgap measure. The Senate is set to suspend the stopgap measure tonight. And the stopgap measure means a continuing resolution, because we're getting close to the date in which all funds will be depleted for several departments in the federal government as of Friday, January 19th. And then there's 2 weeks later where the rest of the departments will be bankrupt. They'll be out of money. That's Friday, February 2nd. So now they're trying to stave off this government shutdown ahead of the fast approaching deadline starting this week. And the Senate is scheduled to take its first procedural vote on a bill that will serve as the vehicle for the stopgap measure known as the continuing resolution. It'll extend the government funding deadlines. They're pushing the can a little bit down the road to March 1st and March 8th, a week later. It's like, really?
Wow,
just get it done. You had plenty of time when you're like, oh, we got till January 19th. And you did have time, but what did you do? You went home. You didn't stay and work. You went home and left it hanging. So
the government is so polarized right now. It's nothing's getting done. Yeah.
So Sybil, my favorite representative, Jeff Jackson out of North Carolina, he kind of explained what happened in Congress. That they basically an ambush happened on the floor of the House. Basically they want these 30 Republicans want the government shutdown. They're doing everything in their power to have that happen. And so basically what he said was exactly. And what Jeff is saying is that the speaker now has to work around them to get this done, and he has to go, and he has to get the Democrats to vote for this bill and get this done. And he said that's going to really piss off the Freedom Caucus, and so they have no clue what's going to happen. You know, if this bill gets pushed through, they have no clue how they're going to respond to that, and that's where we are right now. But they said the history of government shutdowns is never good for whoever created it. It never works out. They said it just gives them a black guy and moves on, but they don't seem to understand that, and so they just want it so that people could feel, you know, fear and be upset. So,
wow,
Right. Yeah.
interesting. This will go on. It was a bipartisan move by the two members of the Senate. One is a Democrat from Oregon, Ron Wyden, and Jason Smith, a Republican from Missouri. And so I'm sorry, this is another story. This I want to move on to. The two, a Democrat and a Republican in the Senate, working together to increase the refundable portion of the child tax credit for 2023, 24, and 25, and adjust the tax credit for inflation starting in 2024. Work requirements would remain, but the low-income families who don't pay income taxes could get up to $1,800 refunded of the $2,000 per child credit instead of the current $1,600. So you get a boost of $200, and the amount would rise to $1,900 in 24 and $2,000 in 2025. It would also ensure the child tax credit phase-in applies fairly to families with multiple children. So that is good news. People were saying, you know, that they missed this opportunity after the pandemic payments were done, and it's still out there. And now they're seeking to improve it and to bring more coverage and more relief to families with multiple children. So that is good news that somebody is out there doing some good. Whether it's trying to keep the government running and kick the current speaker out of his job, because that's probably what's going to happen, as we saw with Kevin McCarthy, right? Speaking of jobs, Coach Mike Tomlin is telling the Steelers he's returning for 2024 after a playoff loss to the Bills in just ridiculous snow, to add insult to injury, where the people had to come and kind of shovel their way to their seats for that playoff game. But he says that he plans on coaching the team next season. And while Pittsburgh has said that it had no interest in making a coaching change, and Tomlin has one more year left on his contract, this will be a good time to sign him up for multiple years, guys, and kind of lock him down. Speculation had begun that longtime Steelers coach would resign after this season. He called the speculation unfounded, and he refused to answer a question by one of the reporters last night. He just got up and walked out during the press conference after their wild card loss to the Bills. He walked off the podium after the reporter started to ask him about the coaching next season. And reports, and so moving from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Tomlin has been there almost 20 years. They are
17.
not a team that, you know, will have, you know, a coach this year and then maybe in another couple of years and bringing in somebody different. Once they commit to their coaches, what have they had, like 4 over the history?
If that.
3.
Wow.
3.
Tomlin, Cowher, and who's the legendary coach? Knowles.
Chuck Knowles.
That's it.
Yeah.
Chuck
There you
Knowles.
go. There
Out
you
of
go.
the
Them
whole
the 3.
Steelers enterprise, they only had 3 coaches ever. Wow.
3 coaches. That's it. And they all
That's unheard
basically
of.
did almost 20 years apiece.
Right. And that is amazing. But he's a good
And the
man.
owner of the Steelers is the Rooneys, and that's where the Rooney Rule came from. For now, where NFL teams have to interview black candidates for their coaching
openings. Yeah. Yep.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate the lore.
For coaches and for defensive and offensive coordinators, if I'm not mistaken, man.
Yes.
That
All of them
includes
now.
too? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now it does.
Reports indicate that Jason Kelsey has informed his Philadelphia Eagles teammates that he is retiring. Jason is the big brother of Travis, who is in the middle of a very public love affair with Taylor Swift. The 7-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, and future Hall of Fame center told his teammates after the Eagles lost last night 32-9 to Tampa Bay that he's retiring after 13 seasons, according to the NFL Network. He declined to talk to the media after they were eliminated in the playoffs in Tampa, but he was emotional on the sidelines before the end of the game. And Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts said, "You know, man, he's a legend in this city, really in the league. I don't want to do a disservice to him and the things he's been able to do and overcome. His journey to where he is now didn't come easy. It's been a long, long time coming for him. And every year since I've been here, it's been want to come back. But he knows how much I love and appreciate him. He knows how much I've learned from him. He'll forever have a special place in my heart." And if they just could have played better, then they wouldn't be having this
Yeah.
conversation.
And there's that.
Yeah. It's sad to see Jason go out like that. And I got to say this about Jason is the fact that his podcast made him one of the most popular people in the country. Like Travis, like people see Travis because not only is Travis a great tight end and a great, he got breaking records for, tight ends in the league.
Yeah, Kansas City.
Jason is a lineman, and lineman doesn't get that much love, and popularity. When I tell you, when they did their podcast maybe last year, that thing took off, and both of them grew even more from that. So now it's like the love that he's getting right now is immense. And outside of Philly, he was beloved in Philly, but he's kind of beloved nationwide now.
Right. Oh. Yeah. And he and his family have become, rock stars.
The whole family.
In the city of Philadelphia. The mom, the dad, the wife, the daughters, all of that.
The kids,
and
everything. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move to entertainment. It was Black Girl Magic last night at the Emmy Awards. I don't know if anybody saw this. It was a lot of consternation amongst people because the playoffs were on, the Emmys were on, and it was election night in Iowa. Okay, some of us, more for one than the other, but Niecy Nash's Emmy speech made headlines today as she paid tribute to every Black and brown woman who has gone unheard. She gave a phenomenal speech. She won for Best Supporting Actress in a Limited Series for her role as Glenda Cleveland in Dahmer Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. And she said, "I'm a winner, baby." As she took the stage, thank you to the Most High for this divine moment. And thank you to Ryan Murphy for seeing me, Evan Peters, I love you, Netflix, every single person who voted for me, thank you. My better half who picked me up when I was gutted from this work, I thank you. And she went on to pay tribute to all those who contribute to her win, including herself. She said, "I want to thank me for believing in me and doing what they said I could not do. I want to say to myself in front of all you beautiful people, go girl with your bad self. You did that." And she also accepted on behalf of every Black and brown woman who has gone unheard yet over-policed, like Glenda Cleveland, like Sandra Bland, and like Breonna Taylor. And she did speak truth to power, and she said she's going to do that till the day she dies. Bravo, bravo, bravo to you. And congratulations for a job well done, and for, as our friend Sherry Shepherd would say, for saying the speech that she's been sharing with her girlfriends over these many years. She got a chance to say it up close and personal to all the world. And when I said it was Black Girl Magic last night, Ayo Edebiri, who plays the sous chef on The Bear, I absolutely adore this show. It takes place at what was a Italian sausage joint in Chicago. She's won just about every award recently, including the Critics' Choice and the Golden Globe. And Quinta Brunson also won for the first time in 40 years. A Black woman won for leading actress in a comedy series. Had not been won since. Oh God! And now I just had a freeze. The woman that plays Louise Jefferson on The Jeffersons.
Isabel Stanford.
Yes, thank you. Isabel Sanford won in 1981 or 82, and it has not happened. A Black woman has not been selected for that award and voted into that award in 40 years. And so a little bit of history. And all of it happened.
I think Isabel also got the Best Preston Curl Award as well.
Nice, wasn't it? That thing was like the Rod Tough, baby.
She definitely won the Soul Train Award for Best Preston Curl, if I'm not mistaken.
But how great was it to see last night? They had a return of a lot of the old TV shows.
That was dope.
Martin, the cast of Martin was there. It was magical. It really was, and
I,
great to see all
I
those people. Marla Gibbs was there with Taraji P. Henson giving out an award. 92.
92.
Yeah.
Man, no, I think what I got from that also was hearing about so many shows that never got nominated for an Emmy.
Yeah.
Like Martin
Okay.
was was Martin like never? I was like Martin was never nominated for an Emmy,
Right.
and they were
Right.
about like Girlfriends and Living Single never were nominated for an Emmy during
Right.
their run. I'm like, that is mind blowing to me.
And they had to go to the people to keep those shows on because they were, you
Yeah.
know, the first to want to cancel those shows. Absolutely.
That's crazy to me.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
It's absolutely crazy. You're right. So that was a lot of fun for me to watch that and to see a lot of those people. As I said, Marla Gibbs came out with Taraji, and it was great to see. Marla Gibbs looks really good, and she still got it. She still got it, and I bet you she remembers when Isabel Sanford got the Emmy that day 40 years ago. So congratulations to all of those women, and our jewel today. As we continue our salute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., today's jewel borrows from the civil rights leader. Those of us who are truly rich are those of us who are selfless. Serve others. So thank you guys for serving time here and giving us the opportunity to hear your thoughts and also putting up with me and participating in what I hope will be a life-saving discussion with our friend Brian Custer.
Yes.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Have a great week. Stay warm, and we'll see you next time. Aloha.
Thank you, Sybil. All right, fellas.